Hi, everybody. This is going to be relatively brief because it's not really something that is really my focus. And also, I know there's a lot of talk about whether people should do drama videos or not do drama videos. And I'm here to be a voice of moderation on this topic and to hopefully bring some perspective to it. I'm assuming as we go into this that you're at least familiar. I will be covering it in very brief, the glossy details of the various facets of this. But I want to give some perspective about the different components of it. So if you're looking to hear someone who is not far on the wings when it comes to this topic, but cares about it, and for whom it has been a feature of the last few nights of my life, then hang on and we'll hang out and talk about this. So without further ado, let's make sure, it looks like things are coming along. Okay, welcome. Over the past few days, it has come to light that Nolan T. Jones, who's an important person, possibly the CEO or president. My recollections are not completely 100%, but a leader of the company Roll20 that provides a web-based virtual tabletop system that has been a central figure of my gaming for the past year and has been a fixture of the way that online tabletop role-playing play has developed over the past few years. Well, it turns out that this person has had a number of interactions that did not reflect well on his company. And that is how I want to frame this topic. There are a lot of different ways of saying this and a lot of ways of blaming the platform and a lot of ways of talking about it. We will be getting into the specific criticisms of the original post that elicited this response. So, in very brief summary, the way this all began was that a user of the Roll20 subreddit on Reddit, in response to a thread of, is criticism of Roll20 allowed here? It came up and he offered a comment about some of the features that he thinks could be improved. And in the past, he had looked to other virtual tabletops because of some of these criticisms. He is a 5-year subscriber and power user of Roll20, and definitely the sort of person for whom the platform really probably values them as a customer, and certainly their input would be valuable. With that being said, what instead happened is that the person got a very snap ban from the subreddit, and it turned out that the moderators of this subreddit were in fact the people who run Roll20. So on a satellite social media site, they were running this group, and their moderation, of course, had a big conflict of interest. And to kind of put a capstone on that, there's been a number of interactions in the past with the person who runs Roll20 that fit into this pattern where they take it personally, or they don't let something go, or they make it personal about their personal stance on things. And that's how I want to view a lot of the other side of the coin, because there's a whole forest of videos coming out about a prior pattern of behavior here that involves a number of incidents that people have painted in a political light. And if you know, there's unfortunately, there's a lot of channels out there that seem to make their gravy, eliciting sort of a feeling that the traditional ways and also, people's manhood in gaming is being eroded, or that more progressive values are insinuating themselves into the tabletop hobby in a way that these channels believe is cause for alarm. I want to be careful about this because I want to say that I think that, you know, these people, they can get followership and viewership by kind of crying wolf about this stuff. And you could look at these other incidents through the light of, you know, frankly, some of those topics, and you could be very concerned about them. And I will go over them in a moment, you know, with my own narrative of the other incidents that fit into this person's pattern of behavior. Because I think that all of these things have mostly to do with this person, Nolan's, they have lacked critical distance on a number of occasions about these things. And it's just, you know, if this person takes a step back, Roll20 is a great platform and frankly has done a lot for the hobby. There are parts of it that I don't care for, and we will get into some specifics about some places where I think it could improve. But let's take the other side of the coin. Let's talk about the prior incidents that are now being connected and knit into this. Hi, stream feed, R McDude. How's it going? So these other incidents, let's talk about them. First of all, let's get myself a little bit more front and center here as we launch into this. Okay, so one prior incident is that there have been a number of varying opinions about paid DMing using the platform of Roll20. And on the forums, there have been a number of disagreements, and it has turned out that some of the moderation team on the Roll20 forums, when these arguments got escalated, and not really escalated, just different points of view, these people kind of felt it was escalated and either were removed or their posts were removed about this topic. Right now, I'm not going to go into paid GMing. I mean, I put a lot of effort into the stuff that I make, and I'm looking to get into the game of making adventure content for your own tables on my Patreon. Personally, I think that role-playing is an interaction between friends, and like this character, Nolan T. Jones, I think that kind of bringing in conflicts of interest can be a drain on what the joy of the hobby is. So he's made a great web platform for role-playing, and maybe the social media and the communication side and stuff didn't work out so well. So here's incident number one. A couple of months ago, I think maybe about 6 to 9 months ago, there was an interaction between a couple of users. On Roll20, people apply in the forums to join games. There's sort of like a marketplace or a recruiting hustle that goes on, and the different games kind of put up various kind of billboards and vamping processes, and there's an application process. And so someone made a Reddit post alleging that in a Discord conversation, the person offering the game discovered that the person applying was a woman, and then they said, I don't normally recruit women to play my games because that's just not me. And so she made a Reddit post saying that she was kind of tired of the misogyny, and naturally, I mean, I think I would be tired of any kind of reflexive prejudice about that. But notwithstanding, you know, and I think that that systemic kind of whatever gave rise to that person's belief is, you know, it's not to my taste. But in a free marketplace, there are lots of games and there are lots of different ways of playing, and there's lots of different games posted on Roll20. And, you know, I like to welcome lots of different people and give different people a chance. And I think it's really good for my opinion is that it's really good for your chops in this hobby to play with people that you're less than comfortable with. Because like music, which is another thing that I like to do, it really helps to get out and make music with people that are above your skill level, that play different kinds of music, to figure out how your instrument can contribute to other genres. You know, I don't like hip hop music, but I have a drum machine and some synthesizers. And one of the things that, you know, in the middle of the night, I wake up and I have visions of myself with a hologram baseball cap backwards, you know, doing the whole hip hop DJ thing for, you know, someone who does that side of music. Because, you know, frankly, it's a trade, but also it'll make me better at my core stuff in music. And that's the same way that I look at, if someone who's outside of my normal spectrum of people I play with, I find that I'm face to face with them and they're asking to play with me, I will probably challenge myself to do it. When 5th edition came out in D&D Next, I had some high school kids walking up and asking to learn the game, and they had some interestingly creepy notions about what the contents of the game were, and I had to deal with that on the fly. My wife was at the table and other women were at the table, and generally I thought that younger, even more impressionable people were getting an impression about the game, and these guys had some weird ideas. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but I had to, in the moment, figure out how I would deal with that kind of content being introduced into my table. This is for Adventure League in 2014, right when the game first came out, and just a meeting of minds and lots of different people. And it really enriched my ability to kind of get into a good place with my gaming, to get closer to the game and having fun with the game, by being challenged about the people and people that are outside my comfort zone that I don't necessarily, I have to think about whether it's going to work with those people, or whether what they're going to do is not going to work with other people. And I think it makes you mature. Okay, so that's my belief. So Nolan T, when this woman made this post about being excluded from this game, he said some nasty things about dudes like that, but mostly the quote here, and I may be paraphrasing, is, "I'll be happy to nuke those guys off of the site." And so the idea is that they would be banned or their stuff would be deleted. And this is based on an allegation and also just a Reddit post. So that's difficult. I mean, I think, notwithstanding the political stuff that's going on and is on the news right now, I'm sure if you turn it on, it's one thing for someone to be considered for a position of authority. It's another thing for your private process of game making and your library of tokens and your maps and minis and everything and your games that you're preparing. It's another thing for all that to be suddenly deleted because the CEO of the company has heard an accusation and is just going to go and do that. That's very frightening, frankly, because that does not sound like there's a review process. That's and it sounds like it could be a matter of kind of opinion, frankly. So that's something that I think that generally a company like Roll20 that's hosting other people's data should take a lot of care of. And I'm sure I'm going to start getting some stream feed with some people, with some big opinions. I think, and so anyway, that's incident one. And let's take a break, and I'll check in with Stream Chat here. Ron Anderson says, "Nolan has never been shy about his politics. Personally, as long as I'm getting a quality product, I don't care. It has no impact on my life whatsoever." And so that's my opinion, basically, is that, there's a lot of people that whose political beliefs do not affect my like or dislike of their product. For example, I like Starfleet Battles, which is, I think, the best miniatures game that's ever been made for Star Trek. And a lot of the ideas and the flavor that comes from their version of the Star Trek universe informs a lot of my Star Trek gaming. The person who is the author of that game and runs the company that owns it has been described by some folks as being to the right of Genghis Khan on guns. And that's, that is maybe not where I'm at with things, but my channel's not about politics, so I'm not going to talk about that. But the point is that the product is noticeably separate. Like, it's not getting driven down my throat, this person's beliefs about that. And, but you open up Roll20, you really can't see any of this, whatever political agenda, frankly, the people running it have. And that's where I'm at, is that the product seems pretty neutral, and especially the branding. But there is another side to this that goes on. If you're familiar with the channel Taking 20, which is sort of an instructional channel about D&D 5th edition primarily, but also just about running your games and so on. Cody Lewis is the person who runs that. Cody Lewis is a very outgoing sales personality guy, and he really puts on an aura. And so in one of his videos, he talks about how he had a number of channels, YouTube channels, put together about a year ago, and he asked Nolan T. He was able to get into a phone call, a Zoom call, and he asked, "Hey, perhaps you could sponsor this alliance of channels that we're going to put together, and would you like to sponsor this? This will be exposure for you, and it'll pay for our time investing in this." And so this is one of those places where I think that the keep your mouth shut it comes into play, and it's a little bit telling about things. Is that, you know, he said no thanks, and in words that are not quite as eloquent. Nolan said that, you know, this is not a diverse group. It's not going to extend our reach as a brand. He said the exact opposite of that. It was very crass, and it was not controlled. And I'm not going to repeat it, frankly. I'm not going to repeat Cody's recollection of it. But and then he went on to describe how he bragged about how he had instead sponsored someone else. That interaction could have gone a completely different way, in which it's just said no thanks. And if you put it in the context of this other, like, I will ban this person that you've just accused, you know, without substantiation of, and if you put it in the context of of the recent thing where someone offered some constructive criticisms about bugs and feature requests in Roll20, and they received a very sudden ban, I think it speaks to just that this may just be a human thing. And what I mean is that maybe this is a good platform and something that's doing a lot of good for the hobby, and it might be that this person, in their personal interactions, it started to affect the business side of things. And so I'd like you to think of it that way, and also maybe to not think that, you know, this is the end of the world, that, you know, politics is getting interjected into gaming. Maybe someone it has a little bit of an issue with live and let live in their position of responsibility as a host for a product, and a host for data. So I'm going to read some stream chat, and then we will go into the original set of feature requests, because I think it's an interesting place to go and think about where Roll20 could improve, and some of the interesting workarounds and sort of my opinions about some of those things that have come up. So let's get into stream chat. I need to pop it out because the way I have this, it's always cropped, which is, you know, it's just the way I do it. R. McDude says, if I rather a company should keep quiet about a political view, stay neutral, and you won't have this kind of problem. So my response to that is that, you know, you can speak with your actions much louder than your words. And that's kind of my thoughts on the topic, is that if you want to sponsor a diverse group of people, then do it. And you don't have to, you know, in your declining another pitch, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to make it about them. You can just say no thanks. And I think that it sort of feeds this axis, the axis of channels, the axis of people who really are making their gravy on this kind of skies falling alarm stuff. That's the Jeremy Hambley, the quartering people. I'm not going to alienate them too much right now. I know that there's probably people who watch my channel that also consume that content. So I don't want to get into an argument. I will say that, you know, 99% of their content and their brand is about trying to get people upset about stuff like that. And so I think maybe they want to make this particular crisis about that culture wars stuff. And maybe it's just one person. That's kind of my thought. So Tailscene says, I love SFB, although I play more FedCom now. Oh, I love FedCom. Oh my gosh. Yes. Wow. Somebody else who sees FedCom as the light. FedCom is less compatible with role playing. It's a good miniatures game, frankly. It's one of the best miniatures games that I've seen. And in model density, it's nice. I don't know if you can play it like as quickly as I need to as a parent. Like, I think I need 2.5 hours rather than 3, but I think you can probably do 3 ships versus 3 ships with 2 guys in 2.5 hours, which is that's really good. That's really quite good. for a role-playing game with that kind of like tactical integrity. So unfortunately, our channel is mostly about role-playing games, so I won't get too distracted, but yes. So Talcine says, from what I've heard about the Roll20 issue, the things I like are the things I don't like are the silencing of people who are trying to bring up any kind of criticism of the platform or criticism of the way it is being moderated. And yeah, so that's the interesting thing, and that's what I'm going to devote the remainder of this stream to, is talking about the actual stuff that this guy originally brought up. Because I have some workarounds and I have some opinions about some of it. Like some of it's kind of like, let it go, or you have a point there, and this could be something that they could really work on. That's a point. So not to mention that Cody was working with Roll20 as a contractor and promoting their product. Again, yeah, no thanks, or we're already booked. It is that would have been a different way to say it. Frankly, and for someone who's currently your business partner, whom you probably don't want to, you probably want to stay in a good relationship with them. That's what I mean, is that I see this through a personal light, like that it's just sort of, it doesn't seem political as much as it seems kind of self-control. And I don't mean to attack this person at the center of it. But I do mean to suggest that this is more about people and a particular kind of person's approach than it is about the politics stuff. And I say that because I know that there's an army of people out there who want to make it about the politics right now. And frankly, in this case, on this occasion, I think it's just an unfortunate conflict of interest and sort of some unfortunate kind of person-to-person choices that have been made. I'm more concerned with Roll20's abysmal customer service at this point than I am about. So that's an interesting point. I'm not a paid subscriber, and so I don't know about the actual customer service. I do know that their social media strategy is questionable. And that's one of those, it's conflict of interest, and sort of, it does raise some heckles. If something's a business of this scale, you do speculate, it's like, shouldn't someone at this business sort of have some public relations acumen and some sort of chops for thinking through things like this, thinking before saying and thinking before acting. And I think that's my take and my response to some of this, is that it sort of raises a lot of questions. Because that seems like a good investment to be made for a business, is, in branding and in communications with your users and your customers. So with that said, let's look at the original list. Okay. So he talked about how the entire engine appears to use DOM, which I don't know exactly, but rather than WebGL. And so suffice it to say, WebGL would mean that it would use the graphics accelerator, and it would be using VRAM, and it would take a load off the motherboard, and that would be a good thing. So, as a web application that's graphically intensive, it does lead one to speculate. And then the other side of that is that we could get things like isometric views. We could get things like moving about on like a 3D grid. Like you could get the cubes of Mechanus. There are things that we could open up the door to as far as kind of things that you almost can't build in real life tabletop play. And so that would be really eye-opening. I have a lot to say about Fantasy Grounds, or rather, I don't really care for Fantasy Grounds, and that's the main alternative as far as a stable thing that's not a pain in the butt. And we'll talk about the alternatives, but I mean, that's one of the reasons that I'm using Roll20, is that it does generally just work. But these are the things that I think could use some help. There's a slight delay or stutter whenever I try to scroll. This is one of those things with web applications, is that the browsers are constantly being upgraded to take care of security vulnerabilities, and the web applications constantly have to change themselves. And it's constantly this kind of off-kilter environment where an installed application, it can kind of freeze a version, and generally there's a lot of precautions made towards backwards compatibility with updates to OSs. For whatever reason, web applications, it doesn't work that way. So the fact that there might be a little bit of sluggish response on this stuff is, it is what it is. I mean, it's a web application, which means that I don't have to worry about if there's a Mac OS client. I don't have to worry if someone is just playing from a Chromebook. I can just say, hey, come play my game. Come play with me. And they don't have to install anything because there's a lot of suspicion about installation, and a lot of people won't go to that trouble. That's why some people are still using Hangouts instead of Discord, or why the transition to Discord has been as sluggish as it has in online gaming, is because, you really need to install Discord. And, the Discord video chat feature, I think that only works with an install, but it's certainly something that, in order to figure out how to work it, yeah. Anyway, so that like web applications are as web applications does, and web applications open up a lot of ease of getting people to play with you. He says, I hate how the interface suffers from being in the browser rather than a standalone program. Okay, I'm not going to read the rest of this. I just explained why that's sort of an asset / that's kind of the core thing that web Roll20 is. Yeah, so that's not really I don't think you can complain about that. It's like, that's like saying the sky is blue. I have a problem with the sky being blue. When putting lots of tokens on the table, you have no way of separating them out automatically. I want to give my players a selection of minis to choose from. There is no way for me to share my token folders with them. And then I dragged all the tokens so this could come into play if you had like summoning spells. Like, I don't see it this way. Like, I think he has a point, but the practical purpose of it would be that a player could have a batch of tokens that they could pull from for summoning monsters, or hireling tokens that they could pull out, or supporting character tokens in the case of Star Trek Adventures. I see the point there. There is a workaround. It's called, you make a deck, and then you make that deck play as tokens on the field. So, that's in fact not the workaround already exists, and it works really good for my part. The initiative tracker only highlights the token you mouse over. There's no built-in option to highlight the currently active token. Yeah, that seems, of all the reasons to use the initiative tracker, I think that's probably highest on my list, and that's why I just don't use the initiative tracker. I've been playing 2die20 when I use Roll20, which has fixed initiative orders / you spend tokens to change when you go, so we don't need to roll and keep track of where people are on the tracks and so on. Phone stuff. There is no built-in way for the players to end their turn with the initiative tracker. They need to tell the so I find this to kind of be silly. Like, it's not the entire RPG in code form. Like, we're still talking to each other. I want you to talk to me as the DM, and I want you to talk to your fellow players about how you're done with your turn. I don't see that having a place really with the way that virtual tabletop play works. I think it sounds like he wants something else to me. There is no built-in way to roll 4 checks for multiple tokens at once. You have to use an add-on, and those are somewhat limited, and if they work at all. He has a point there. It would be nice if fireballs, or like everybody roll a saving throw. It would be nice if there were ways to script that. I see the point, and it seems like with the age of this platform, it's like basically 6 years old. That seems reasonable to me. Tokens do not have there's a lot of stuff about vision. I don't go in for that, and I think that's sort of an advanced feature that it only applies to exploration-based like dungeon play. And the other thing is that a lot of that sort of like very sensitive to light radius stuff was never really practical or possible in tabletop play, even with maps and minis. So, it's kind of just being pioneered by applications like this. So to me, it's not my place to get into criticizing and nitpicking all that lighting stuff. First of all, because it's not my bailiwick, but secondly, because it's the sort of thing that I'm not expecting it from this. lack of SVG support. I think this is a really constructive thing, is that SVGs are vector graphics, which means that they don't rasterize. Instead, they're drawn. So if there's a curve and then you zoom in on the curve, it never pixelates. And that would be really useful for a lot of reasons. And yeah, it would just really help with things like drawing your own maps, or if you put down like tokens, like your wall of fire token and so on. Those would be very, very valuable and useful. But, you know, manipulating SVGs is the sort of thing that, you know, Inkscape just now, that's the only open source platform that I'm aware of that lets you really edit and use SVGs. Not just display them. It just became usable like in the last couple years or so. And before that, you had to generally use Adobe Illustrator. So, you know, it'd be nice. That's a great constructive request, frankly. It's a place where this could go. I wouldn't call it a lack so much as sort of a cool request. So then, you know, this goes on a lot, but the last thing that I want to talk about, and this is a very meaningful criticism for my part, is that I'm sorry, I'm reading some stream chat. It's kind of mind-boggling. We have some interesting opinions here. So this is the last thing that I want to talk about, though, when it comes to feature requests in Roll20. And the reason that I'm doing this is to focus on the platform and the things it does, and to talk about how, you know, basically this personal drama has gotten in the way of being constructive about where this application can go, or whether to pick a different application. Like, we're making this about drama instead of about the thing, or possibly, you know, the peril of having your stuff deleted from the thing. And I understand that, but, you know, this is the tail end of the stream, and I think that if there's a reason to, you know, there's a reason to make some good out of this DramaSplosion, out of this incident. That's what I have to say about this. So yeah, the thing is, when you move the players to a different page, it's at the top of your bar like this, and you're pulling across like this. And if you have a lot of scenes in your game, it's very difficult to move that beyond where it goes. My son, I think, is waking up downstairs, so we're gonna wind it down. Thank you for hanging out, and I just want to. I thought it was really important to bring in sort of a moderate voice about this stuff, because a lot of people, I think, are seizing upon this to their own benefit, or kind of just to inflate and make it about something else. I think that this is a person who has made some poor decisions as far as when to say things and when to not. And they worked themselves into some conflicts of interest. They moderated their own subreddit, and, you know, they don't seem to have a public relations person in between them, and that personal distance from your creation has brought up some issues. So you can't link pages, and that's the big thing for me, is that you can't go to level 2. It could be really fun in my Star Trek game if we could walk up to the turbo lift, and the group could get in the turbo lift and go to a different part of the starship. Those are some kind of fun things. Or there could be a button like "Get us out of here," the "Beam us up" button. Some options like that could be very cool with moving between pages. It's 6 years old, and that is something to think about. It does work in most browsers, and it does work on a lot of clunky computers, to varying degrees of success. So, and it's been free for all that time. So I've been very thankful for that. Hopefully, the Roll20 gets a social media manager. Hopefully Roll20 gives a good enough apology. This stuff about the some white guys got denied their partnership because they were white thing. The way I look at it is that, he never had to say that part. He could have just said, "We're not interested. Thank you." And, And so I see it on a person-to-person level when it comes to that. So let's look at Stream Chat and let's catch up. I've been on the fence about which platform to go with, Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds. So here's the thing, and I will talk about this. Fantasy Grounds costs money, costs about $200, and you still have to do a lot of the setup. For my part, I can't do as much of the theatrical stuff that I do with my Star Trek stuff. I use PNGs that I snip out and they fly around, and I have a lot of layering. I will put the scene traits onto like a PNG text graphic. And everything lives in a box in Fantasy Grounds. Every image, every handout, everything except the map just kind of like pops out in a box. And that's sort of the idiom of it. And it's been very, like, it was very difficult for me to figure out even how to roll a die. For me, for my part, it was less intuitive. That's my impression of Fantasy Grounds versus Roll20. Roll20 had some issues with the browser, and accidentally you'll paste something in the URL bar, or you'll try and drag an image in, and instead it'll just go, like, your browser will open up the image and you'll get navigated away from Roll20. There are some things like that, that come with the territory of that. But Fantasy Grounds, you have to install, you have to have that kind of conversation, that negotiation. To recruit players, they have to go and install Fantasy Grounds. And, the player version, which if you pay the $200 to get Fantasy Grounds, it's free for them. They still have to install a client. And, nowadays, like, they can install the Steam client and stuff like that. And so it could be easier for them to find it. But, I think there's still that latent kind of phobia, like, oh, should I open this exe file? And you'd have none of that anxiety with Roll20. There's a lot less anxiety when it comes to that. All right. Frontiers Horizon. If they continue this, they will lose. I mean, they have, frankly. I'm going to continue using it, but at a certain point, like, I start to worry, like, about, like, what does it take for me to get deleted? Like, what's safe to say and what's not? Like, I'll just say no thanks to the whole thing entirely, because I don't want to be guessing. I don't want to be, like, tiptoeing around on glass, trying to not make somebody angry. Customer service can make or break a company. Yeah, so the gaming community is small overall. Alienating customers in a small market just doesn't seem like a good idea. And that's basically where I'm at, is that, like, business is business, and social media management and public relations are key to business. And that's where I'm at with this. That's the conversation that I'm having. It's not about this alt-right channel, like all the quartering people. I just, like, yes, somebody had some politics, and somebody has some politics. Somebody also has some different politics. But yeah, I don't care about the politics. What I care about is the lag. The site is a big dog. Spend some cash to improve bandwidth. That's an interesting thing about the lag. I think that it may not necessarily be them as much as that it's like the sync. It has to, like, have a lot of handshakes along the way. Like, the player moves their token, it has to go to them, and the player's lag has to happen, and then it has to come to you. Like, it's all the same lag that can happen in MMOs. And, it's all the same sort of, different pings and milliseconds of delay. And my main concern is that sometimes somebody moves a token and it's not like something happens on the other end. But the thing is that we are also playing with people with clunky computers. People play on their second or third computer on their Chromebook. And a lot of these expectations that we have of this application, some of it have to do with the fact that we're, like, some of the machines that you're playing with on the other end of it are not great, or people are on Wi-Fi, or bad Wi-Fi, frankly. And that can be a lot of it too. Use Astral Tabletop or Beyond Tabletop. Okay, I'll take a look at it. Those are some interesting options. Because frankly, I need something else, because I ran into the hardware and the clunky problem, where it's just like the navigating between the windows got a little bit slow for some of the folks in my group. I think somebody's in my house. It may be Grandma. I'm going to mute y'all for a second. Thank you guys. Thank you. So yeah, I'll have to cut that out or God knows what. That's fine. All right. Where did we talk? Where did we stop talking about this? Okay. All right. So, all right. This gives me an opportunity to resynthesize this talk that I was going to have. Some people say this racism stuff is a problem. Some people say that stuff. Here's my opinion. The way he said it, he made it that way. He made it about that. But you know, like, this is why I think it's about a person and, you know, not knowing when to stop talking or, you know, not having critical distance, is that as a company, I have a limited brand budget. I have a limited budget for ambassadorship and advertising, and I have a limited ability to reach out to new customers. And so, you know, if I'm looking at a proposal from a group of people who want to do some advertising for me, are they going to extend my reach? Are they going to represent like a new group of customers, a new group of users that I haven't captured yet? And, you know, at what cost? And that's a good question. Frankly, I mean, that would be on my mind. You know, like, when it comes to things like paying people for Twitch sponsorships, you know, I think that there's reason to think about that. Like, for example, like, I wouldn't mind a Twitch sponsorship to run some Crunchy games, because maybe Crunchy games don't have enough representation on Roll20. I mean, I don't particularly want to take the risk of trying to do business with them, given what's going on. But, you know, that's going to be on my mind. Like, if I was running a platform, I would think, all right, well, who do I not have yet? Okay, you guys are more of the same. That's, you know, like, I mean, thank you. You can do your own thing, but, you know, like, this is going to cost me money and it might not be good for me. That's where I think about that. That's my response to it. If you look at the costs, Fantasy Grounds and Roll20 are the same price. Oh, I'm sorry. I am going to giggle at that one. I'm going to giggle extensively because what you've seen on my channel, if you take a look at the stuff that I've done with Roll20, it's been free. Everything that I've used Roll20 for has been free. And I'm really happy with the stuff that I've been able to create and deliver with it. If you want core product of grid-based gaming and like lots of stuff automated in the character sheets and that stuff, then yeah, maybe the costs start to get similar. But for my part, I mean, I've spoken to my group and they said that, you know, they were missing proficiency with the rules. They didn't really understand how the game worked. And that was kind of slowing down, like, / they felt a lot of distance from their character and from the game because some things were too automated. And like, we didn't really even have that much automated in Roll20. Like, I just had, you know, like, people were trying to just click the character sheet for tasks. And so, you know, like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like, I've take a look at what I've done on Roll20, and like, I did it, you know, with my own hand in GIMP in the image editor. It was a lot of fun. And that's, yeah, like, I cannot say that there's any similarity in costs. So yeah, terrified about retaliation. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. That's interesting. I mean, frankly, yeah, that's what I mean about this person's self-control. But, like, I think that's, like, you can be intimidated or not. That's up to you. And I don't know who's not saying anything. And I would also put to you that maybe the people who are saying things, the edgy boys, I guess, when I heard some equivocation about what the difference between alt-right Jeremy Hambly and edgy boy Jeremy Hambly, maybe they're one or the other. But these guys, I mean, they make their business off of being edgy. And they're saying, like, other people aren't brave enough to say anything. That's just, like, other people just, that's not their brand. They don't like to raise a fuss. And generally, like, that's not my brand. Like, I do not want to be a drama channel and, like, talk about this stuff. I get a lot of comments about how, like, Paizo is, like, you know, being too forceful with culture stuff. And, you know, like, I have an opinion about it, but I'm not even going to talk about it right now. Okay. Yeah, like, I don't want to get distracted, so I'm going to pick something out of stream chat because, yeah, that's, you know, like, sometimes it's just not your brand to talk about drama. That doesn't mean you're intimidated. And I think that the guys who do talk about drama, they're probably going to say that other people are chicken so that they, you know, they can look bigger. They can look like they're cooler, tougher dude. That's kind of my thought, is that, you know, those people whose core business is like looking like a tough, edgy boy, that they're gonna call out other people and say that other people are weak. Costs are comparable if you look at buying 5e rules and modules. That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I like 5e as a face-to-face tabletop game, and there's so much of, like, I would basically be forced to, like, if I wanted to start doing face-to-face gaming again, like, that's where I would have to go right away, is to that. Maybe I'd get to do Pathfinder 2 playtest, but, like, you know, that there's enough of it in my life, so I really don't, like, I don't have an appetite to pay for that stuff. So, like, maybe I'm in a different place, you know, as far as considering the costs and stuff. But I also like to create my own. I really enjoyed the process of setting up my Star Trek Adventures game in Roll20, and kind of doing all that myself was very, very rewarding, and it got me more intimate with the game. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The buying a license. I mean, for me, I put a lot of work into setting up the games and setting up the tables and so on. And, you know, if someone is really casual with the ban button or with the delete account, that's unsettling to me. I mean, that's where I'm at with that. Yeah, is that it just, you know, like the safety of this. So what I would like to see is a little bit more distance. You know, like, I think that the best thing that could happen here is social media management and public relations, you know, as opposed to the founder of the company, like, interjecting their passions and their, kind of right on the edges, the seat of their pants, like momentary, like, oh, keyboard warrior moments seem to have slipped through. And that's sort of, that's what I think has happened, is that, you know, like, sometimes I'm a keyboard warrior, and I've, you know, I've gotten really intense, but I would be very wary to put that into something that's my brand. Like, I've gotten very invested in this channel, and it's a big part of, you know, it's a project that it's my baby. It does something besides different than me. And so, you know, I would like to be as dispassionate as I can, you know, especially with something like nuke banning and all this stuff. Like, it's very unsettling to me that kind of stuff was discussed so casually. Yeah, you know, sometimes you gotta walk away from your work. Or let somebody else do your social media management. All right. So yeah, it's interesting. Another time, basically, I'm not actually not another time. I don't want to talk about quartering. I don't want to feed his way of, like, he wants to make people upset and alarmed. He like, that's what he does for a living. I don't know of him doing anything else. And yeah, I like to make people excited and chat. And so this has been a fun chat. I just wanted to be a little bit moderate here. Have a great afternoon, everyone.